Okay, so now that we have had practice using the slope and finding the slope, I want to introduce another concept to you, and it's the shorthand for it is just the lowercase letter b, and it's called the Y-intercept. And the Y-intercept is just a fancy term for where the line crosses the y-axis. And so that's represented by the letter B in algebraic equations. So if you look at these four graphs, in each graph, the line is crossing the y-axis at some point. Now, where is the y-axis? The y-axis is the pink line going up and down. So the y-axis is the pink line going up and down. There's the y-axis. So there's the y-axis, the y-axis, y-axis, just to remind you. Wherever the line crosses that y-axis, that is what B is. That's the y-intercept. So it's just a really fancy term for something pretty simple. So we're going to find the B value, the y-intercept value, and the slope in these four graphs. So if you look up in this first graph, in the top left one, we'll call this graph number 1, you see the blue line is crossing the y-axis right at this point, right here, and that is 2 notches down from the 0, so that's a -2. So -2 equals B, equals the y-intercept. And that's it. That's the big fancy term, y-intercept. That's how simple it is. It's just wherever the line crosses the y-axis. And here it's -2. Now, what about the slope? Well, we have this -2 dot, so this would be at -2, and the x value would be 0. So if you want to find the slope, we need the rise over the run. So we need to find the next place where this line is going to cross at a notch, which would be up here on the x-axis right there at x value +4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the rise from this y-intercept dot would be 1, 2, so that would be the rise, and the run would be the 1, 2, 3, 4 over to where the line crosses the x-axis. So the slope would be 2/4 in this graph. Now what about the next graph? Where does the line cross the y-axis? It crosses right here, and that's a +2. So B is going to equal 2 in this case. Now we need to find the slope. So the slope is the rise over the run, and you see this line is going downhill. So this slope is going to be negative. So if you go down to the x-axis, you're going to be going down 1, 2 notches. So that would be the rise, would be a -2 over, and where does the line cross the x-axis? Crosses right here. So that is 1, 2, 3 over. So the slope is going to be -2/3. Now what about this next graph down here? And let's see, this was graph number 2. So what about graph number 3? So the B value would be wherever the line crosses the y-axis, which is right here, and that is the y value would be a +3, so 1, 2, 3. So the y would be a positive 3. And then we need to find the next time the line is going to run into the notches, where the notches meet of the y and the x, which would be right here. That's the next time the line crosses like the junction where the lines meet. So we need to find out the slope. So the slope is the rise over the run. So we started at our y-intercept point and we count up 1, 2. So it's going up 2 notches. And then we count over 1, 2, 3 to where the line crosses an x and y value. So that would be 2 over 3 is the slope. And the y-intercept, b, would be just 3. Now what about graph number 4? The line crosses the y-axis right down here at this dot, at this notch. So that's going to be a negative, right? So that's going to be a negative 1, 2, 3, 4. So b is going to equal negative 4 because that's where the line crosses the y-axis. But what about the slope? Well, as you can see, this is a straight line going from left to right, going straight across. It doesn't incline. It doesn't have a slope to it. So it's not going to have a rise or a run. There's no rise. The rise is 0. So if the top number, if the rise is going to be 0, even if the bottom number is something, we could say that it goes, it goes over 1, but the top number is 0 because the line doesn't go up any. It just goes from side to side. So the slope is just going to be 0 in this case. And so that is what a y-intercept is. It's just where the line crosses the y-axis. And it is represented by the lowercase letter b.